All right. And welcome back to another episode of Two Guys and a Bard. And we are obviously down a man this week. His internet is out, so we're hoping it comes back on and he can join us. But how are you doing, Redbeard? Yeah, the show must go on. And we had a pretty awesome live stream this last week. Like, I don't know how you felt about it, but most people I've talked to, um, just it's the most information we've had in weeks. So, what was that? Uh-oh. Well, I'll just keep going on. I can just do the show by myself, you know? No guys in a bard. That AJ, can you hear Red? Anybody? Bueller, nope, still no. Technical issues.
How about now?
Testing. He's asking again.
Oh, I'm hearing everything double.
Uh-oh.
So if I do that and that, nope, still double.
Well, bear with us while Red tries to figure out these technical issues. We've tried to throw everything together on Red's now streaming instead of Fayne this week, since Fayne is obviously missing. But we'll get there. Bear with us, guys. Maybe import just your microphone separate. I don't know if that would work. We're getting there, guys. One beard and a bard. I've got a beard too. It's not quite as luscious. I'll probably grow my beard back out for winter. That's generally when I do it. But yeah, tonight
Mic check. I imported the mic separately, so hopefully we're working. Hello,
testing. Can you hear him?
I heard things.
You heard things. All right.
Sweet. Now
so
that'll do no filters on this mic, so hopefully it's not too cringe for.
It'll be fine, right? So yeah, as I was saying before we got into technical issues, we had a pretty amazing live stream. And as I said, I haven't talked to you about it since last week, but everyone I've talked to has just been like, that's more information than we've gotten in months, in probably any live stream, to be honest. What were your thoughts?
It was absolutely insane. Like, first of all, I think that's about as close as we get to Nodes 3. So, congratulations.
Finally got notes through.
But no, it was a fantastic live stream. It was like the buildup of the first half. Like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the entire first half, I was kind of like, oh, okay, you know, this is just going to be the regular live stream. Like, we'll get some cool info. Maybe they'll show the new map, you know, based off of the tweet and whatnot. And then it was just information dump after information, just constant. I still haven't parsed through it like 5 or 6 times. I'm waiting till this weekend because I was playing the Diablo season this last weekend. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. So when I go through it all, I'm looking forward to absolutely tearing it apart. But so also, I mean, you guys got me completely fresh on it. I haven't like really had an opportunity to like talk it out with anybody yet. So what about you?
And
how did you think about it?
I mean, I thought it was awesome. So here's the interesting thing. Steven said we're going to start getting content dumps on the lead up to Alpha 2. And this to me was kind of a content dump. So it's like, well, maybe they have things more fleshed out than we actually think, because they're starting to like go back to these systems and implement them. So we're starting to see that. And yeah, as I've said, every week, I guess, like, or every month, I'm like, oh, we're going to get nodes. We're going to get more info on nodes, because that's the core of this system. Like, it's the core of the game. That's the thing we want the most information on. But yeah, we're finally starting to see how things are going to connect and mingle, and, you know, because it's so easy, and I think a lot of people do this when they're, you know, voicing opinion or saying something on the forums or the Reddit. They're looking at these systems in a vacuum and complaining about something where it's like, well, it all works together. So complaining about this or removing this is not necessarily a good thing, because it interacts with these 5 other systems and they all work together. So it's
well, it's one of those things. I mean, like you're saying, right? Like if you have a trail of dominoes and you pull out one domino in the middle, you know, the entire line gets fucked up. So it's like you need to be, you know, you can change the size of the dominoes, you can change the width of the dominoes, but all those dominoes need to be there, and you have to look at it as a full picture, or else you're just completely missing the entire point of how all those systems interconnect. And the insight that we got was interesting. I mean, the map size, you know, yay, bigger map, pog, go us. But the detail within that is what was really interesting to me, about they're actually increasing the map size but lowering the number of nodes, and how those nodes are going to be interacting with that, you know, flowchart that they have now, as opposed to just the kind of scattered ZOI thing that we were looking at originally. I mean, there's a whole 2 hours right there and talking about like how that breaks down and all of that different stuff. So yeah, the node side of the update was massive, and I agree. Like I've heard some people talk about it, and it's like, even just Ashes as a whole, not even pertaining to this last live stream update, but people wanting to say like, oh, this one system like should be taken out, or this one system should be altered this way, and it's like, okay, the alteration can be fine as long as you've come at it from a side of, do you know how it's going to impact all the other stuff? And so I think that's why the way that Intrepid is doing feedback is, you know, they're asking us what we would like, but then they're sticking to their vision of it, right? Because if they were to just be like, oh, 500 people on Reddit said they wanted this, let's throw that in there, or they don't want this, let's pull it out. Only they know how it affects everything.
Yeah. And doing stuff like that has ruined so many games in the past, right? Like New World, for instance, was originally going to be a very different game, and then all these players came in and said they wanted these things without realizing the actual vision of an MMO survival game.
Yep.
Like, And I still think there's, you know, there would be there would be probably more players playing New World right now if they had stuck to their original guns. They might not have had as many people off the bat because it wouldn't have appealed to quite as many people, but then they would have had a complete vision and completed the game. Rather than having all these systems kind of shoddily put together, like the PVE stuff that just is
Yeah.
whoever was the quest designer for that one. I'm not sure, but I don't think they should be working in quest design anymore.
Wasn't it an Ashes guy that left Intrepid and went over to?
uh,
Was he a quest designer? I don't
Akil was
remember.
art, I
Oh,
think.
was he art? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, he was art. And
I'm
the
just
art was really good. So I will say, like the graphics and the feel and the look of New World was
don't
fantastic.
mind
That
me.
was
I
one
was
of
just
his
trying to
best
throw shade for
assets.
no reason.
And Fane's not here to support Akil because I know Fayne just loves Akil for whatever reason.
Yeah. Um.
Um,
Well, so that and then I think switching your vision is fine, but you have to give yourself time to fulfill that new vision, right? Like, I think
mhm.
what was so hard about New World is I can't even honestly say that they changed or adjusted their vision because it was so disjointed from or not necessarily from the beginning, but from so early on that I don't even know what their end vision was. Like, I don't even
Mhm.
know. I made a joke a while ago. Like, I'd give anybody at Amazon $100 to tell me exactly, like, to tell me what the elevator pitch is for their game. Like, and I don't think any of them would be able to come up with anything accurate to what the game actually is because nobody knows what it is. Is it MMO? Is it theme park? Is it sandbox? Is it a mix of both? Like, because in some aspects it leans theme park, in some aspects it leans sandbox, but it doesn't do either of those well. And so it's like, what is this?
Yeah, and I mean, well, we don't need to go more into New World. Everyone
No, let's
knows how
trash it.
bad it.
Let's trash
Let's
it.
just trash it. So one of the biggest changes that I'm seeing a lot of, uh, I think, squeaky wheels on here is the changes to flagging in the open sea. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's fantastic as somebody who is not a fan of ganking per se.
Hmm.
Like, so I like the social interaction that comes from a game that is fully like full PvP.
Hmm.
Um, I wish there was a way to get that. So if there was a way to get that same level of social interaction and not have PvP on, that's actually what I would prefer in a game. Just from an individual standpoint, I like PvP stuff, but I typically like it being tied to um, like an instance or something like that. Mainly because I don't like to have to deal with that shit if I'm out wandering about and gathering and whatnot. But I understand the importance of it, and I think that
Hmm.
the distinction there is like I'm still going to play Ashes, and I'm still going to adhere to like what is required because of that system being in place the way that it is. That being said, with the open seas, um, Grumpy Guy actually brought up this point in comms today, and I 100% agree. Um, with open sea, the anti, the corruption system basically not existing, which, by the way, if you didn't know, that's what he meant by flagging.
Yes.
Being on land doesn't mean you can't be PvP'd. It just means that if somebody PvPs you and you don't fight back, they're subject to the corruption system. Open Seas does not give a fuck about the corruption system. They attack you,
Hmm.
nothing negative happens to them, so you must fight back. Um, the with the open seas having that unflagged PvP, I think it is going to pull some of the stupidity that would have happened on land and put it out into sea because there's going to be this mindset of, oh, you want to do the like ridiculous PvP stuff? There's a place for that.
Hmm.
Don't go bother level 10 person, chopping down trees. Go out and swing your sword against people who will actually fight back. And people get called you know yeah, but and
Yeah.
so I think it'll help alleviate some of the bullshit on land. um so for me, for that reason primarily, I think it's great. And then secondary, I though it's not a huge fantasy of mine, the level of excitement that I've heard from Suspect about being able to do the open sea piracy stuff has been massive. And
Yeah.
so, from that side of it, though it's not my own excitement, I'm excited to see other people excited about a specific level of content being introduced in the game that they're wanting to play.
Yeah. And I've said, as I said earlier, I've seen a lot of people complaining about it. They're upset that now they're not going to be safe on the open seas and they're always going to be attacked and blah, blah, blah. But like, here's the thing I'm looking at is like, that's once again looking at this in a vacuum, right?
Yeah,
You're looking at this content in a vacuum. There is still the fact that your reputation, your guild's reputation, and all of that, like all the political intrigue that comes with making enemies and stuff like that, is still going to be a thing. So if you're out on the open seas always being an asshole, you still have to go back to port to repair your ships, to repair your gear, to get like, and with that comes all these materials you're going to need from all over the world, right? Because there's regional materials. And if you're out there being an asshole, then everyone's like either upcharging you to do the repairs, or upcharging you to get the materials you
yeah,
need for the repairs or whatever. And then you're also going to be black, like your guild will be blacklisted, right? If we were talking about a pirate guild, no one's going to want to deal with them or help them with anything, right? If they're just out there indiscriminately attacking everyone. And so I don't see this as much as big of an issue as some people are making it out to be. I think it just encourages, it also encourages group play, right? You're encouraged to not just go into the open ocean. It's like, no, get a group together, get a couple ships or a ship with your group of people and go out together. So to me, this is just increasing more of the socialness and it's giving an avenue of some really fun content with no real downsides, in my opinion. Like, I don't real like, yes, it's going to be risky to be on the open sea. But the other thing, too, is they increased the map size, right? But that was all water. They said the land mass has not changed. It's just they've added a lot more water to sustain open sea combat. So, and I think a lot of people will be sticking to land. So, I don't think you're going to see, like, you're not just going to be constantly fighting on the open ocean, right?
yeah.
You will run into people every once in a while, but it's big enough that I don't think it's just like, oh, you're fighting like 3 or 4 ships by the time you get across the ocean.
Yeah, it's not like every time you load up the game, you're worried about, hitting 5 people every single time you go into the open waters. There may be days where that's happening if
Yeah.
a guild decides to put a giant line, in between the two continents of all of their members just for fun. Um, but I don't think you're going to be running into that, very frequently, like you're saying. And plus, with most of the upscaling being done in the side of the water, um, now with that, how did you like the changes to the actual land portion of the map? Because though it didn't really go up in size, they did adjust positioning. They added those 2 islands. Well, added, more took it off of and made it an island. But
Yeah.
um, and then also the waterways, because I thought the waterways were a really good addition into some of the biomes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't go in yet and study the land masses. But it sounds like the reason for a lot of the adjustments were to give you more friction points, right? So more areas that were, uh, constrictions. So when you're running caravans and things like that, or running through the world, there's not options to just like avoid everyone by taking the long route around. So there will be these, mountain passes and things like that. And I think that's what the waterways are too, right? Like those
Yeah,
are like constrictions for naval content. And that's where you might actually run into people. But he also said, right, that there's going to be a buffer zone before you're in the open sea for full flagging. And I don't know how far out that's going to be either, right? Because that could
yeah.
be decently far out. And then you don't really have to worry about going out into the open ocean very often, even if you're running like a sea caravan up the coast or something.
So, what do you IRL? Because I know you've done a lot of outdoor stuff. Have you done any like deep sea fishing type stuff?
I have done some, yeah.
So
Not a huge amount of deep sea, but
having had the experience of, have you been so far out in the ocean that you can't see land?
yes, yeah, definitely.
Having had that experience, what do you constitute as open seas? Like, is it based on depth? Is it based on distance from the land? Like, where, at what point are you thinking? Just on that note of, we don't know how far off the shore that line would be. How far off the shore would you want that line to be?
Um, I mean, personally, like, I don't know if this comes from any real life experience because, like, when you're out at sea and you can't see land, that would be open oceans to me, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's at that point, if someone attacks you or someone comes and pirates you, no one, like, unless they're on the ocean, they're not going to find you. But I feel like personally, I would like it to be kind of close. So maybe like it's hard to say in game, but maybe like couple football fields, couple 100 yards out is
Okay, so
when.
people could have a boat and kind of, make their way up and down the coast if they wanted to. If they stayed close to the shore, they wouldn't have to worry about the open ocean side of it.
Mhm.
But you
And I
would
mean,
you would want the majority of the water to be considered open ocean.
and keep in mind too, like you can still attack people in that buffer zone. It's
Yeah.
just they have to fight back or you get corruption. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think definitely by the time you can't see land, and I don't know, like
We
the
might not
the,
have
the
that in Ashes. Like you might
yeah, that's
always
what
be
I was
able to
gonna say. Is
see.
like I don't
Yeah.
know if there will ever be a time you won't be able to see like a mountain in the distance, right? Because I'm just thinking back to Alpha One when you could see all the way across and so
Yeah.
far with that view distance, and you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah. You could see the volcano like from almost any point on the map.
Yeah, it was, and that was kind of cool, right? Because it always gives you a landmark to orient yourself with,
Yep.
and it gives that feeling of a big, epic, open world.
Well, I love it because it's like, oh, look at that cool thing over there. Let's go over there. And then you end
Hmm.
up trekking through the wild, and you come up against natural barriers, or even other player made barriers with towns and whatnot, and you have to like weave your way around. And though as the bird flies, it doesn't seem too far away. That could be an hour and a half,
Yeah.
adventure for you to go and explore and stumble across new things. And I think that'd be great.
Well, also by the time you get sidetracked with random points of interest, you may never even get there.
Ooh, piece of candy, chopping down
Yeah.
trees, gathering. um,
um,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so aside from the naval and the nodes, what was your biggest takeaway?
Oh man, I think the biggest takeaway, and I've kind of always thought this, but I think this last live stream kind of really solidified it, and that was how much I think that they have done on the back end. And not that I don't necessarily think that this last update pushed forward my estimate on when Alpha 2 is, but that it's comforting to know that it seems as though a lot of this stuff is already in the back end, right? Like
Hmm.
I know in the past Steven has talked about systems that they're not like currently developing on, just to kind of get community feedback. Hey, what do you think about this? I mean, he did it with daily login rewards, right? Like unless they were already starting to work on daily login rewards, that to me seems like a very late system to start working on.
Yeah.
Um, or a much later system. Um, which, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, community shot that down. It's not in the game. Don't want
No
to freak.
daily logins.
Yeah, don't want to freak anybody out. But I really got the impression that there was a lot more in the background that was done, um, and it felt good. It felt good to look at something and hear the detail about it. I mean, Steven said it in the beginning. He's like, this stream is a little bit more for the people who've been following for the last 5 years. This is
Uh-huh.
this is going to get a little bit more, not necessarily technical, but it's going to get into more of the back end of the systems. And I mean, it's what me and Fayne have been asking for.
Yeah.
I mean, over a year now. Like, get into the depth of it. And we got a little bit of that with the animal husbandry stuff, but and all the other cool visual stuff. It's fun to see that. It's fun to see the weather system. It's fun to see, um, I mean, combat, of course, but the bread and butter of this game is the back end systems and how they communicate and interact with each other.
Yeah.
And seeing more detail on that is what I
Well,
like to see.
yeah, and this is going back to like the feedback I really think they're looking for the most is going to come in tweaking these systems. They're not
Yeah.
trying to make major they have the vision. Steven has his vision. He's not trying to change that. He's trying to get feedback. Sorry. Um, doggo. He's trying to get feedback on the balance of all these systems, making sure the corruption system is punishing enough but not debilitating, making sure the EXP debt is, it is a punishment, but it's not going to be so bad that it frustrates people or makes people want to stop playing. It's finding a balance of all these things, and I think that's really what Steven is looking for. And a lot of that feedback, is going to come when we get into Alpha 2 with all the when we see all these systems kind of crisscrossing and meshing and working together. Sorry, Wizzy.
I was gonna say just go shoot the intruder real quick and then come back.
Yeah, no intruder. Just it's probably the dog that lives on the balcony next door. They bark at each other all the time.
I was just saying hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's there's man so there really is a ton to unpack in that live stream. Like I said, I haven't gone through and rewatched it yet. I watch every live stream usually twice. Um, if it's like got some good information in it, the first time is just to kind of watch it. The second time I'm taking notes and whatnot. Um, bus boycott. um, but
Everything is Fayne's fault while he's not here.
Yep, blame Fayne.
It's all Fayne.
Blame Fayne. Um, what was the second part? I'm actually spacing on because there was the map, there was the nodes. Wasn't there something else that we got in there? Why am I spacing on this right now? Oh, so it was before, but the Minotaur reveal.
Oh, yeah.
I'm calling it right now. That's the next playable race. I think we're gonna get a lore thing where we're fighting them, and then a faction of them is gonna break off and join us, like a year after launch, and then that'll become a playable race.
They were clearly corrupted, right? Because you could see the crystals growing out of them and stuff. So maybe there'll be a quest line where we like purify some of them.
Yeah. So and then some choose to become uncorrupted, and then the others stay corrupted. Like that's kind of projecting. I would love to play as that Minotaur. That's why I'm saying it.
It would be really cool, but I also don't want them to just I kind of don't like when MMOs just keep adding in more and more races and playable races, and they just I would rather have systems and new game play types and stuff than more races, because we'll see what happens, but I hate when WoW is like, here's the same expansion with 2 new playable races. But it's the same thing over and over again. It's still a loot treadmill, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, and that's and like you said, that's the issue when it's I would love to see a big the big first update that we get needs to be some kind of system slash content update, right? It needs to be introduction of new systems, introduction of new content, and then maybe in between is a playable race thing, and then boom, and then after a couple months later, then it's content and whatnot. But if it's one or the other, I 100% agree. Leave the races alone and just give us the content in the system.
Yeah, and then so especially what I would like to see with expansions is them making the game wider, giving more options to play the game, and then keeping that's the other problem with WoW. They'd add these cool systems in I know the garrison system in WoW had problems, but it was a really cool system. If they had fixed those problems and kept it as part of the game, that would have been better. Then there's the people that want to do, the micromanaging mini building a village gameplay, and you have that option to do along with doing your other stuff. And you just needed to fix the broken parts of the system, rather than, because WoW and a lot of other games, when they add a new expansion, they take away a lot of the systems that they had previously released, and it makes the game more linear instead of making it broader and appeal to more types of people.
Yeah. So what did you think about the node policies? We got a little bit of a little teaser, I guess you could say it, like kind of what they're looking at for the node policy, which is separate from guild like level perks and whatnot. So in my head, this is something that can stack on top of, right? Like if you have a guild perk for gathering, and then there's a node policy for gathering. Um, I that could be something that could, if you're strategic about it, you could actually end up having some pretty big bonuses going on. But what did you think about the whole node policy system?
Um, I thought they were awesome. It seemed like the policies are something that you choose out of a list, right?
Yep.
That the mayor would choose to interact or to engage. Um, I'm wondering if that's something that can be changed over time, or if you pick it once and then it's there until the node gets demolished.
I think they can be changed because the way that he was talking about, like if a mayor picks a node policy that you don't like, that could be a contributing factor to voting them
Yeah,
out or something like that. And so I wonder, to me, it sounds like it can be changed. You know, I might be thinking too much New World here, but they kind of seem like those temporary buffs that you could
yeah,
apply to your settlement in New World. Um, and then the part of it where it was like, let's say you have 5 slots, but the Renkai Honor Bound buff takes up 2 of those slots. So now you got three
uh huh.
slots left, and then you can pick 3 1-slot perks, or you can pick a 3-slot perk, or another 2 slot and a 1 slot. And so there's going to be some interesting dynamic to that, and it'll be interesting to see like how many slots they assign to different perks.
Yeah, I was also wondering because the buffs were racial, if you needed a significant
Yes.
portion of that race in your node to be able to enact them. And
Right.
that would make sense, right? And
Or if
I
there's an influence from the node type, so the
yeah.
rate, because the node architecture is based on the race that contributes the most experience to the node for that level up.
Mhm.
I wonder if Renkai levels up a node, does the Renkai honor bound buff go from 5% to 7.5%? Like
Ooh, that would be
if
cool.
if
Different
there's if there's some
tiers.
like different kind of play and integration there, because that's what Intrepid is doing with Ashes. Like everything is about integration, and so I'd love to see some kind of like little
Mhm.
integration aspect like.
Yeah, and I have to go back and like look at them more closely. I like you have not rewatched it yet. I mean I probably need to watch this one like 2 or 3 times more
Yeah.
or at least one time more and really go back and like
Well, I
analyze
have
like
them up
watch
right
it
here if you want
slowly.
me to read them out to you
Okay,
what they
yeah.
are. So the Renkai honor bound all node to node reputation changes are increased by 5%. Now I do find it interesting that it says changes and not all node to node reputation gain.
Yeah. Well,
So
Renkai are war like,
is
right?
is
So
there a is there a downturn in reputation? Like can you lose reputation, and if so, then this is also affected by that. Like
one you may want like there may be reasons you want to lose reputation too, right?
right.
Um so yeah, and
Jeez.
I mean, there is gonna be some of that. I think there's definitely like because if you are a complete min maxer, I think there's definitely gonna be some strong encouragement to play certain races.
Yeah.
Whether that be from a world perspective for getting different buffs to your class to different stat bonuses you get from those races and that kind of stuff. Um, but we'll have to see, and I think it depends on the guild and the server as to how harsh some people are with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and it is good to see, and I know that you've taken this point in the past when we've talked about like the min maxing of stuff and whatnot. Like the more and more of these things that I see get introduced, the more and more I agree with your original take of if there is so much stuff in the game that can affect your overall player power outcome, then yes, one could technically go down the path of min maxing every single little point, and people will. But if there's so many things and the variance of the final product is only 1 to 2% total, then there's no point in
yeah,
doing that. And so And that's great because as a player who is historically min maxed, that would allow me the freedom to just play how
Yeah.
I want to play.
And that, I mean, it may be like only a small percent in your damage increase, but you have more sustain or you have
Right.
more what, because they're it's not like you're just losing out by choosing something else. You're just gaining benefits that aren't necessarily min maxed for like, yeah. And WoW, you only have mythic ratings. So that's how people decided this is the min max, because pretty much that's the only end game for WoW. But in this game, so many different options and ways to play the game that, every player might choose something a little different based on their play style.
The more and more information we get, the harder it is to define what end game is, and the harder it is to define
Hmm.
end game, then the more variance as or the more decisions we will have as players to kind of or freedom, I
Yeah.
guess I should say, to play how we want.
So do you have the read off the rest of them
Yeah,
too?
so we have Great Harvest, increased gathering speed within the
Ooh.
zone, or sorry, within the node's ZOI by 5%. Interesting about this one is it only the parent node that can pick the node policy, or can every node pick it? And if so, can every node
Can
pick
it
this one?
stack?
And now you have like a 25% increase in gathering speed because every single node picked it. Because it affects the whole
Ooh.
ZOI. Like
Yeah.
this is where
And the
my
ZOI for the
mind brain
parent
goes.
node,
I
yeah.
want to abuse it.
And well, so yeah. So but then the smaller nodes, so like the smaller nodes would only affect their ZOI, which would be smaller. So you could stack,
But zone of
yeah, you wouldn't be able to
influences.
stack like that many, but you'd be able to stack a couple, right?
So if the so the way that it would benefit the most is if the parent node picked it, the subsequent node picked it, the smallest node would benefit the most,
Yes.
and then the largest node would benefit the least, which is
Yeah.
extremely interesting to have it that way.
Hmm.
And
Well, that,
then
I mean, it encourages, like, then there's reasons to be out at these smaller nodes,
yeah,
right? So that's
absolutely.
another one, because we've had that discussion before as well. I think that was like 2 weeks ago. We had that
It was
discussion
brought
of,
up again on recently.
yeah, like what is going to encourage you to get out to these smaller nodes, or encourage you to not necessarily just want to be in the metro area. Yeah, that was one of the AMAs, right? It
Yeah.
was asked to Steven. And this is potentially another one. And so, and it goes with real life too, right? Like, you don't want to be harvesting resources right next to a metropolis. You want to be out in kind of the boonies to harvest your resources, because that's
Yeah.
where they're most abundant. And yeah.
Well, it makes sense, right? Because if there's more people around, there's going to be less resources, and more resources need to be shipped in. I mean, that's excuse me, that's very akin to real life in that, like you're saying. Um, and then also stacking with guild perks. I mean, I'm assuming that
Hmm.
there's going to be gathering speed guild perks for
Yeah.
guilds that are
I mean,
focused on
we had
crafting.
them for A1. So
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's what they were like, they're thinking of going down that line.
imagine there's like a guild that like maxes out their gathering speed from perks. Maybe there's some gear that has increased gathering speed and so whatnot. Like there might be a meta build for gathering, which is
Oh yeah,
really cool.
100%. And then the maybe racial bonuses as well and things like
Yeah.
that. So like, yeah, and so you're really good at gathering, but when it comes to keeping your gatherables and not dying to the enemy, you're not so good at
Yeah.
it.
I can just see myself now. I'm like sitting there, whacking at a tree with my axe, trying to get wood. Maybe it takes me like 10 or 15 to chop it down completely. And I just see some like speedy dude run by, hit a tree once, and then
Yeah.
it's down, and then they can just keep going. Um, yeah, that so how all of that like incorporates is again, how do you define end game? And that
Yeah.
gives another definition end game. Maybe somebody wants to be just this super awesome fast gatherer, in my head, if the system can be utilized in the way that I'm thinking, like there's a path for
Yeah.
that now. That's great.
And in a full open world game, the benefit of that, or an open world PvP game, the benefit of being able to harvest quickly is
Yeah.
pretty big,
Yep.
because you're not that stuck there where people can see you and, you know, just
I'm
target
having
you.
flashbacks to mining Orichalca. I'm like constantly moving my camera around 360, just looking out for people. Um, so the next one is Kalar Industry. node construction and upgrade speed is 10%
Mhm.
faster. So not just construction, node upgrade.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're talking about leveling up a node or if they're just talking about like whatever we don't.
Upgrading buildings and
Yeah, we
things
don't
like
know what
that
those
within.
upgrades are. Because I would say that if
Mm.
it's referring to buildings, why wouldn't that fall under construction?
Right?
Well, I guess no, I guess you could have perks from those buildings that get upgraded. So maybe that's what they're referring to. But like if you
Perks
have
and
a
then like
barracks or something like that, then you're
yeah.
upgrading
I
the
mean,
number
if
of
that's
guards.
affecting experience though, and how fast you gain levels in your node, like from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, that would be an interesting meta as well
Yeah.
early on. Just like everyone stack this. And then also, if we're talking about stacking, right? You have a level 4 node that has a ZOI around it, and then like a little further out, you have a level 3 that now gains benefits from both of those, and suddenly that one overtakes the level 4 node because they're getting benefits from both, and
Well,
then you
this
have a
one
tale of two cities.
true, but this one doesn't say that it's going to like to the whole ZOI. This one's
Oh,
just for that node.
just for that node.
Yeah,
Okay, that
the
yeah, true.
gathering one was for the Z. Um, let me. But on the point of stacking, again, it says Kalar, so maybe there's a race thing going on there where it's like, if Kalar is the prevailing race of the node, then
Yeah.
maybe that's a little bit higher. So
And now what was the percentage on it?
10.
10. Because like, yeah, if you can get more than 10, and then also 10% doesn't seem like that much, but in a game of this size and how long things are going to take, like, if you're grinding for a week to try and get, a certain building up or to level up your node, that 10% is almost a day's worth of time, right? 7
Yeah.
days. I know that's a
It could be
little
that
exaggeration,
honestly,
but
depending on timing, it could be the difference between a successful defense or
mhm.
the falling of your node. And then, so this one I thought was very interesting. Asylum, instant citizenship for refugees of a fallen node. So we've heard Stephen talk about before, where if your node falls and you lose your home or your citizenship and whatnot, that you get this kind of back end code of refugee. And he said in the past that that might give you benefit in other nodes. And here's one of the benefits that we see. If this is taken, then you can instantly become a citizen, which then also tells us that there is some kind of time restriction without this perk for becoming a citizen of a node.
Mhm.
That's kind of the in between the lines information here that I'm getting.
Well, and then this feeds into what he was talking about when a city falls, right? He said he was talking about when a metro falls, there's a lot of systems in place to make sure it's not just the tier 5 node right next to the metro that gets the next that
Yeah.
becomes the metro next, and then the map doesn't really change at that point. It's like, oh, the metro shifted over one node.
Yeah.
And so like that feeds into it, because then if you take that and then a metro falls and you get an influx of players looking to get their freeholds back up and stuff like that, then suddenly you might be the next metro, better than someone else.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
not even know it. I mean, from that side too, where it's like you might be a level, what is it, 5, 6 is metro, right?
Yes.
So you might be a level 5 node. A metro loses out. All of a sudden, boom, you guys are a metro and you weren't even ready for it. Like that's an interesting gameplay as well. It's like how do you handle becoming a metro without, you weren't really pushing for it. You thought, you thought that current metro wasn't going to fall, and then boom, you're the next metro, and it's like, oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah.
Now the mayor of the new metro is flying around on a mount, and he's all like, yeah, fuck you guys.
Yeah. And then, so I thought this is going back to nodes, the travel time between nodes. That
Oh,
was kind of interesting. It seemed not as long as I thought it was going to, or like,
75 minutes point to point on foot, 50 minutes by mount, but that's not keep taking into account natural barriers, points of interest,
Well, it
how the
might
bird
be because
the way the
yeah.
bird flies is not how we will be traveling in bird.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was including that or if he like I'm wondering if they actually ran it at some point, right? Because like the map is built. Whether all I mean it's not fully populated, but it's built. So I'm wondering if they actually, while in the world at some point did the run and that's how they timed it, or yeah, or if they're doing it just by mathematics as the crow flies point A to point B.
I would assume that it's probably how he was talking about it. It was as the crow flies.
Okay.
I think if I were Steven, that's how I would deliver the information, and then I
Hmm.
would probably preface or not preface, but postface that with, um, now that's like if you were flying from point A to point B at walking speed or mounted point A to point B at mount speed. Um, it also gave us a little bit of an insight to how much faster we're going to be able to move mounted versus, because that's not, I mean, besides what we've seen in Alpha 1, but, Alpha 1's not,
Yeah.
wasn't a content test. So it's anything
Well,
that we experience there, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
yeah, because mounted was not that much faster, right? It was maybe a 20 or 30% increase, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Because 50 to 75 is, yeah, about, I think, a 30% increase, right?
Yeah.
No, that's a 50%.
50 to 75
Yeah.
or 75 to 50.
No, that's 30. No, because it's 20. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
50% increase.
No, wouldn't.
Because
Yes.
50%
Yes.
of
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
50 is 25.
Yeah.
Math, it's hard.
Yeah. We got there.
So, yeah, it would be about a 50% increase on mount. But I mean, that also doesn't take into because Steven has said different mounts will have different speeds and you can breed for different speeds and then
Yeah. Is that the fastest
different
mount? Is
ability.
that the
Yeah.
average mount? Is that the slowest mount? Like, I would assume not the slow.
Yeah. So that's all stuff to take into account. But what I thought was not as long as I was thinking is he said it's 3.5 minutes on a mount from the outskirts of one node to the outskirts of the next node.
So
That
that
did
was
not
actually
seem that
interesting
much.
to me that the maybe you understood it differently and can give some clarifying points there. When he said outskirt to outskirt, was he basically saying that there was dead zone between nodes?
No, he's saying the node itself. So, like from the center of the node to the center of the next node was 5 minutes. And then from the outskirts, so basically the city gates to the city gates was 3.5.
Oh, okay. Of the actual, okay. I was thinking like when he said that. Thank you for clarifying, because when he said that, I was thinking like the edge of the node's borders. Like, does that mean there's
Yeah.
like dead zone between nodes that is just always stays wilds no matter what, or like? But that makes
But
sense from like
yeah,
gate to
that
gate.
does
Yeah,
imply it takes you about 45 seconds to get from the center of a node to the outside of a node.
yeah,
So nodes are going to be fairly large.
yeah, yeah. Seems like it.
So yeah, that was interesting to me because that didn't seem that long. So if you have to like if you're the citizen of the main node, it wouldn't take you that long to get out to some outer skirts nodes to help defend or help do something.
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of hoping that there would be a little bit more of a distance between nodes.
Hmm.
Um, I think that that would be a little bit more realistic. Not that I need the game to be uber realistic, but um, just the thought of like being in one node and then your neighboring node like being a stone throw away, like that feels kind of weird for some reason.
Yeah,
Like it's almost like,
I
so
mean,
is it really just a big city center and there's multiple cities within it? Like how that's even more concerning. Like how dead is the dead part of the world's going to be? Because if all of those nodes are right there, then that's even more of a area of congregation for the player base. Like they really have to incentivize us to get out, not only into the lower nodes, but into the areas where there are no developed nodes.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, that will be interesting how many dead nodes there are because there will be. Well, I think everything will can eventually reach tier 1, right?
Can
I think.
everything become a crossroad
Well, tier 1 is encampment,
or
right?
encampment?
And then crossroad is after that. So I feel like most things will reach at least an encampment.
That
I
would
don't.
be
Yeah, I don't
that
know
would
if
be
there will
interesting.
be
Well, I
level
don't know if
0
they'll
nodes or
stay.
not.
They might all be able to, but I don't know if they'll stay because they require upkeep experience as well, right?
Also true.
So,
But if that's where the best like gathering is, they may get a decent amount of
oh, it
or
might go up
enough.
to a level 3 if there's really good gathering there. Like,
Hmm.
like. But
No, that
I
is
think
interesting. How,
yeah.
like, because will things fluctuate constantly? Because as he said, if you gather a lot in an area, the resources become more scarce. So then it'll go up to a tier 3, and then the resources become scarce, and then will it drop back down to like a 0, 1, or 2?
Hmm.
Is that going to happen a lot? So like you were out there one day, and then you go back out, and suddenly there's no encampment there anymore.
The mayor of that node might be more important than like a level 5 node somewhere else. Like, and making sure that those perks or those policies are good to go for the
Yeah, I mean,
gathering, keeping that node leveled up as you're saying, so you're not
mhm.
adjusting the spawn rate of stuff. Like, yeah.
And I'm assuming like a tier 3 node that that's the first time you can get a mare. I'm assuming you will get very limited perks, right? Like I don't think
Oh
you would
yeah, I
get
would
like yeah,
assume. Yeah,
you
yeah,
probably only get like one not very good perk as a
yeah.
level 3 node. Um but yeah.
But yeah, some kind of scaled like tier type system, right? Like, I feel like it would definitely uh different um based on your node level, how many perks you can have. I feel like that just kind of makes sense. And
Yeah. So one thing I did want to ask, what do you think we're getting for Ranger reveal now after hearing Steven talk a little bit about it?
I do not think we are getting the same level of class reveal as we got for the mage, cleric, and tank as like we did in Alpha 1.
Okay.
I think he will be on a character that will have ranger abilities and a bow, and we will see the range basic attack information from a ranger's perspective. But I don't think it's going to be like a full class breakdown of what the ranger
Well,
is.
I feel like we might actually, because he did talk about, so he talked about stealth, right?
Mhm.
In the Discord about 2 weeks ago. And he's clarified that Rangers will have some stealth like abilities, camouflage and things like that. But true stealth will still belong to rogues. And I feel like that clarification was because we're going to see some stealth like abilities on the Ranger next month.
Oh sure, and like I said, I think we'll see some abilities, but as far as like, I don't know if we're gonna get like the official ranger reveal like
Yeah.
video kind of a thing, right? Like I think we will see like what we saw with the daggers essentially, right? Like, but I think it'll
Hmm.
be more than that because one could try to argue and say that we've seen rogue. I would disagree completely. We've seen daggers on a melee user.
Well, he clarified that that was Weapon Master, is
Yeah, it
what we
was.
had.
Yeah, it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with class. It had to do with the actual.
Well, the Weapon Master is one of the classes, right?
What's the combination of weapon master?
I think that's fighter fighter.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
that's
So
why we were seeing like a big hammer come out and
yeah,
a sword come out and stuff like that. That's why, he had weapon abilities like that. Um, and I believe someone said that he did clarify that that was indeed, he was on the Weapon Master showing off the different auto attacks.
yeah. But just to say that we didn't see rogue, we saw
Yeah.
weapon master with daggers. Like
Yes.
I think it'll be a little bit more. I think we will see whatever class combination he decides to bring for
Hmm.
ranger, and then ranger abilities. But I don't think we're gonna.
They won't go in depth with like
Right.
all the abilities and all that, but he'll show us a good
Here's the
portion of it.
ranger skill tree. Here's like, I don't think that we're getting like the full class kit reveal. I don't think we're getting like anything like that. I think it's going to be amazing. As somebody who
Yeah.
is has ranger as one of the classes that they're considering, it's I'm absolutely excited for it. I'm more just kind of tempering my own expectation. I don't think we're going to get the nitty gritty detail that I really like out of monthly updates. But I think it's going to be awesome to finally see the boat.
Yeah, and I mean, and Baba's not here right now, but I know he's gonna nut over it.
Yep, I think he's been hard since the announcement.
Yeah, he should have called a doctor. It's
Just a
been well over
constant
4
state.
hours.
If you have an erection lasting longer than 4 weeks, please call your doctor.
What do you think we'll get? Anything else? Predictions?
Oh, honestly, no. I think it's going to be very. I think we're going to get. You know, I'm going to say where they are going to show off the Ranger. I think we're going to get more forest. I think they're going to show off the forest some more. So if that counts as something new, I would say that. But
so I'm gonna go with my normal prediction and say they're gonna start in a node. So no, like he'll just like walk around a node or like start in a node and walk out of a node. That's what I would like to see, just so we can see a little bit of some kind of developed node, because we keep just seeing wilderness, and I'm like, but the nodes, we need to see cities. What are these like? So yeah, we'll see. Nodes 3 when
never. We got Nodes 2.5 last week, so
yeah, we've said it many times, but I hope they put a little Easter egg in the game that somewhere you're like wandering around and you find Nodes 3.
Oh yeah, no, I want a random boulder that gets moved like 5 years after the game's been out. Like, and there's some kind of interaction, but it's so hidden, so off the beaten path that it takes 5 years for us to find it. They pull up a tablet. There's a whole cutscene animation where they dust off the tablet, and it just says "Nodes 3!" exclamation point, and then a bunch of gibberish.
Yeah. Or like a reference to Indiana Jones and that little city with the staff, and like the beam shoots through, and then it like points to this small little city, and there's a little sign that says Nodes 3.
Yep. That'd be great.
But anyway, we're coming to time here, but I would say hopefully we'll probably be discussing the live stream again next week when Fayne is back, or hopefully back, and getting some of his opinions and feedback on it, because I know from talking to him over the last week or so, he's got some strong ones as per typical Fayne. But yeah, so why don't we start with outros, and we'll let Red go first with just two of us.
Captain Redbeard here on Twitch, CPT Redbeard. This weekend, I am going to be deep diving into some Ashes of Creation stuff with this last development update, and kind of really getting in the nitty gritty of it. Watching it back with you guys, talking about it, hearing what you guys have to say about it. So make sure you tune in for that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 7 p.m. Central.
All right. And I'm Bard. You know where to find me. Bardic on all the socials. And yeah, I will be back to making videos on the next, when we really start to get the ramp up to Alpha 2. And until then, we do the weekly podcasts, which are always a lot of fun. So come check us out every Wednesday at 9 p.m. CST, Central, yep. 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, and no one cares about Eastern. So
9 p.m. Eastern.
And 9 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out, and we will see you guys next week.